He looked me straight in the eye and said, "People like you don't belong here." I froze. The words hit me harder than I expected. "My name is Tasha. I'm a black woman in my early 30s, and I've worked my whole life to get where I am. A successful tech entrepreneur. I built my business from the ground up. I've faced challenges most people don't even see, but nothing prepared me for that moment. I had finally saved enough to buy a condo, a beautiful place in a neighborhood I dreamed of living in since I was a kid. I imagined myself walking through those doors every day, proud and happy. So I called the realtor, made an appointment, and got ready to take the next step in my life. When I arrived, I expected excitement, maybe even some friendly smiles. Instead, I was met with cold eyes and a stiff attitude. The realtor barely looked at me and said, "This isn't the right kind of neighborhood for you." He didn't even bother to show me the place. His words were sharp, rude, and full of hate. The pain was real, but what happened next? Even I didn't see it coming. That man had no idea who I really was or what I was about to do next. For as long as I can remember, I dreamed of owning a home in the city where I grew up. Not just any home. A beautiful condo in a nice neighborhood. A place I could finally call my own, where I could feel safe and proud. Growing up, that city was full of memories, both good and bad, but I always believed that one day I'd make it there. It wasn't easy. I worked hard, really hard. For years I juggled 2 jobs, sometimes working late into the night just to pay my bills. Then I took a chance and started my own tech company. It was a struggle, filled with long nights, tough decisions, and plenty of setbacks. But I never gave up. Slowly my startup grew, and after years of sacrifice, I finally reached a place where I could afford that dream home. I started looking around and found an upscale condo that seemed perfect. I called the realtor, scheduled a tour, and marked the day on my calendar. I was excited, maybe even a little nervous. This was more than just a purchase. It was a symbol of everything I had worked for. But from the moment I arrived, something felt off. The realtor's eyes barely met mine. His voice was cold, clipped, and filled with an attitude I couldn't ignore. He spoke down to me, like I didn't belong in his world. Then, without hesitation, he said the words that crushed me. "This isn't the right kind of neighborhood for you." I was stunned, humiliated, angry. My heart pounded as I tried to hold my ground. But I didn't say a word. I left the building in silence, walking away from my dream. Only when I got home did the tears come, quiet and bitter. But deep inside, something was stirring. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. Growing up, life wasn't easy for me. I was raised by my mom in a small, poor neighborhood, where hope felt like a rare thing. She worked long hours, cleaning houses, doing whatever she could to put food on the table and keep a roof over our heads. I remember the way people looked at us, some with pity, others with disgust. The racial slurs they threw around weren't just words, they were reminders that we were different, less than in their eyes. I watched my mom carry that weight every day, but she never let it crush her spirit. She told me over and over, "Baby, you're going to be better than this, you're going to rise above all of it." And I believed her. As a kid, I found solace in the computer. I spent hours teaching myself to code, late into the night while the rest of the world slept. I wanted to build something real, something lasting. But the journey wasn't easy. When I finally started my own tech company, doors slammed in my face, investors ignored me. People doubted me, not because I wasn't talented, but because of the color of my skin. Every dollar I earned came from long nights, sweat and tears. Nothing was handed to me. So when that realtor said those hateful words, it wasn't just about one building. It was a reminder of all the times I'd been pushed down, told I didn't belong. But this time it didn't break me. Instead, it sparked a fire deep inside. No one was ever going to tell me where I do or don't belong. Not then, not now, not ever. After that awful day with the realtor, I didn't react the way most people might expect. I didn't yell or call him out right then and there. Instead, I went home and started digging. I wanted to know who really owned that building, the one he didn't want to show me. It didn't take long to find out. The building belonged to a real estate investment group, a bunch of investors who bought properties to rent out or sell for profit. If I wanted to get what I wanted, I had to go straight to them. But I couldn't just walk in as a regular buyer. That would have been too obvious. So I reached out quietly through a friend who knew someone connected to the group. I introduced myself not as Tasha, the woman the realtor had insulted, but as an investor looking for a serious opportunity. Soon I arranged a meeting with the board. I walked into that room knowing no one there had a clue who I really was. I spoke clearly about my background. I told them about my tech company, my experience managing large projects, and my vision for investing in properties that build communities, not just profits. I wasn't just another buyer. I was someone with the means and the mindset to make a difference. Then I dropped the surprise. I wanted to buy the entire building. Not just one condo, but every unit. The room went quiet for a moment. Then they nodded. The deal made sense to them. No one in that room knew the truth. No one knew that I was the same woman the realtor had insulted just weeks before. I kept my plans close. No celebrations, no announcements. Just quiet, steady work until everything was finalized and the deal closed. I wasn't just buying a home anymore. I was taking control, and soon everyone would see that. A few weeks later, the day came that the realtor never saw coming. The company called him in for a surprise meeting. He walked in with his usual arrogance, thinking it was just another routine check-in. But then the door opened again, and I stepped inside. His face went pale, his eyes wide with shock. For a moment he couldn't find the words. Finally he stammered, "What are you doing here?" I smiled quietly, calm, but firm. "Oh, I own the building now. And you're no longer needed here." The room was silent. Without hesitation, the board agreed with me. He was fired on the spot. I didn't shout or gloat. This wasn't about revenge, it was about justice and respect, things he never gave me or anyone else who didn't fit his narrow view. I turned to the staff and said, "This building is a place for everyone. No one should ever be told they don't belong because of who they are. We are building more than walls and floors, we're building a community based on respect and equality." Some of the employees clapped, others just stared in disbelief. I could see the weight of what just happened sinking in. For the first time the building felt different. I wasn't just a buyer or an investor anymore. I was in charge, and with that power came responsibility. I promised myself I would make sure this place was a home for everyone, no exceptions. That day marked the end of the old ways and the beginning of something new. Something better. Buying the building was only the beginning of something much bigger. I knew that owning it wasn't just about property or money, it was about purpose. It was a chance to change more than just walls and floors, it was a chance to change lives. The very first thing I did was reach out to local Black-owned businesses and minority contractors. These were the people who had often been overlooked, underestimated, or left out of opportunities for far too long. I wanted them to be part of this project, not just as workers but as partners. They brought their skills, their passion, and a deep sense of pride. Together we started transforming the building from the inside out. But it wasn't only about fixing things up or making the place look nice. I wanted this building to stand for something real, something that gave back to the community. So I started fair housing initiatives. I made sure that everyone, no matter their race, background, or story, had a fair chance to call this building home. No more discrimination, no more excuses. I also created mentorship programs. I invited young people, especially girls from neighborhoods like the one I grew up in, to visit, learn, and dream bigger than they ever thought possible. I wanted them to see that success wasn't just some faraway story on TV, it was real, it was within their reach. We began holding community events regularly, block parties filled with laughter and music, workshops where people could learn new skills, talks about business and technology, and even simple movie nights where neighbors could come together and enjoy just being a community. Through all of it, I shared my story openly. I never spoke with hate or bitterness, even though I had every reason to. Instead, I spoke with purpose. I wanted people to feel the power of resilience, and to understand how important it is to fight for what's right. The building became so much more than just a place to live. It became a symbol of empowerment, hope, and real change. Every time I walked those halls, I felt something deep inside me, a pride not just because I owned the place, but because I had helped build a community where everyone truly belonged. That's the legacy I wanted to leave behind. A place where no one ever has to hear the words, "People like you don't belong here." Because here everyone does. Months after I had transformed the building, I received something I never expected, a letter. When I first saw it, I didn't know what to think, but as I read those words, a flood of emotions rushed over me. The letter was from a young black woman, someone I didn't know personally, but who had heard my story. She wrote about how my journey, the struggles I'd faced, the battles I'd fought and the victories I'd won, had touched her in a way she couldn't easily explain. She told me she had just applied for an internship at my company. She was looking for a real chance, a door to open, so she could learn, grow and build a future she believed in. Her words carried a quiet strength and hope, and as I read them, I saw myself in her. I remembered those early days, filled with uncertainty, but also fierce determination. Then came the part that caught me completely off guard. She revealed something I hadn't expected. She was the realtor's niece. Yes, the same man who had looked me in the eye and said, "People like you don't belong here." It was strange, almost surreal to realize that the family of the man who had tried to shut me out was now reaching out, seeking a new path. The weight of that connection hit me harder than I thought it would. But more than anything, it made me realize how far this story had traveled, not just in bricks and mortar, but through hearts and lives. She went on to explain how she had been estranged from her uncle for many years. Their relationship had been strained and distant, broken by the harsh walls his hateful views had built between them. She simply couldn't stand by and support the bitterness and racism he clung to so tightly. It was like living on opposite sides of a divide that neither of them could cross. But what struck me most was the way she wrote, with grace, kindness, and a maturity beyond her years. She didn't offer an apology for herself, because she was confident she was on the right path. Instead, she apologized on behalf of her uncle, acknowledging the hurt his words and actions had caused. Then, as if reaching across that divide, she shared words that hit me like a thunderclap. "Thanks to you, I know I can belong anywhere." Those simple words carried so much weight. They reminded me that sometimes, the true impact of what we do isn't seen right away. It's felt deep inside the hearts of others, sometimes even in places we least expect. I sat there, the letter trembling slightly in my hands, tears slowly slipping down my cheeks. It wasn't just the words, it was everything behind them. The hope, the healing, the change. In that quiet moment, I understood something powerful. What I had done was never just about buying a building or closing a business deal, it was something much bigger. It was about breaking cycles, changing hearts, and opening doors that had been slammed shut for too long. This was about more than bricks and contracts. It was about rewriting a story, one that had been written by hate and fear, and turning it into a story of hope and belonging. It was about breaking old cycles of hate and fear. It was about opening doors wide open, for those who had been told to stay out. Hate had built that wall, but I didn't tear it down with anger or violence. I bought it, I rebuilt it. And I opened the doors, so everyone could come in. That made all the difference. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, comment, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button for more powerful stories like this one. Together we rise.